People think Christmas is about love. About forgiveness. About families sitting close, pretending the cold outside doesn't exist. But no one talks about the kind of Christmas that doesn't bring people together. It forces them to choose sides. That Christmas, my family didn't argue. They smiled. And that's how I knew something terrible was already decided. Snow had been falling since morning. The kind that makes the city look innocent. Lights wrapped around every balcony. Store windows dressed in gold and red. Carols floating through the air like promises. I stood at the crossing, coat perfectly fitted, leather gloves hugging my hands, watching my reflection in a glass window. Stylish. Composed. Untouchable. That's what people saw. What they didn't see was the quiet realization settling inside me. This would be the last Christmas I was invited as family. My name is Serena Cole. I am not the loud one. Not the emotional one. Not the woman who needs to be seen. I am the woman families depend on. Until they decide to fear her. The house was glowing when I arrived. My father loved appearances. Christmas decorations had to scream success. Imported ornaments, real pine tree, candles that smelled like money. From the outside, we looked unbreakable. From the inside, we were already divided. I didn't step in as a daughter. I stepped in as history. Years of silence. Years of sacrifice. Years of keeping things together. So others could fall apart safely. My stepmother, Elaine, hugged me first. Her perfume hadn't changed in 20 years. Neither had her ability to smile. While planning someone's disappearance. My younger brother, Noah, avoided my eyes. That told me everything. Because guilt always looks down. Before it looks away. Dinner was perfect. That's how betrayal begins. No raised voices. No tension. Just laughter that stayed a second too long. And pauses that felt rehearsed. I watched them. The way women like me learn to watch. Quietly. Carefully. Taking notes without pen or paper. My father raised his glass. He always did. And suddenly, I was 8 years old again. Watching a man who loved control more than truth. He spoke about unity. About the future. About legacy. Words designed to sound warm. While freezing you out. That's when I felt it. Not fear. Not shock. Replacement. Noah was sitting where I used to sit. Close to my father. Inside the circle. And I realized something chilling. This Christmas was not about celebration. It was about transition. They didn't accuse me. They thanked me. That's what hurt the most. They spoke about how much I had done for the family. How it was time to rest. How I deserved peace. Peace is what people offer you. When they're about to take your place. I smiled. Of course I did. Because powerful families don't push you out with anger. They do it with gratitude. Later that night. When snow pressed against the windows. And the city sang outside. I stood alone in the hallway. Listening. Learning. Understanding that Christmas was never meant to heal us. It was meant to reveal us. And what it revealed was simple and brutal. Blood only matters until power feels threatened. I didn't cry. I didn't confront anyone. Because I knew this story was just beginning. Christmas night is always quiet. Not peaceful. Just quiet in the way that makes you listen harder. As if the city itself knows that beneath every light there is something being hidden. That night, after the guests had left, and the music faded into background noise, I stood at the bottom of the staircase. Alone. but not vulnerable. My coat was still on, perfectly tailored. Because in this house, you never lower your guard. Not even on Christmas. I had spent most of my life learning how this family worked. And I learned one rule early. Nothing important is ever decided in the living room. Real decisions are made behind closed doors, in study rooms, in quiet hallways. Carefully. Taking notes without pen or paper. Where shadows speak more than people. I remembered the first time. They trusted me with family accounts. They said I was perfect for it. Because I wasn't emotional. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Now I understand. It was a warning. I walked slowly toward the study door. Voices slipped through the wood. My father's voice. Elaine's calm, measured tone. And Noah's. Different. Stronger. New. That alone told me everything. I didn't open the door. When you want the truth, you don't interrupt it. You let it expose itself. They were talking about me. Not the way people talk about family. But the way people talk about a problem that needs managing. Elaine spoke about fresh energy. About moving forward. Fresh. As if I were an outdated idea that no longer fit the future. Noah spoke next. His voice wasn't steady. But it was ambitious. He said he was ready. Ready. I understood immediately. Being ready doesn't mean being capable. It means being willing to take someone else's place. My father said nothing. And when he says nothing, the decision is already made. Something shifted inside me. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Distance. As if a switch inside my chest had quietly turned off. The Christmas tree suddenly looked unfamiliar. The wrapped gifts. The perfect ribbons. Families are like that. Beautiful on the outside. Unpredictable once you open them. Elaine handed me a gift later that night. Silver wrapping. Heavy. I opened it slowly. Inside was an expensive watch. Elegant, timeless. And a card. For all the years you gave us time. Time. They had wrapped my sacrifice. And handed it back to me. As gratitude. I smiled. Stylish women always do. The deeper the wound, the more controlled the smile. That night, when everyone slept, I sat alone in the living room. Lights off. Only the glow of the Christmas tree. And I thought, the cruelest thing about family politics is not that they push you out. It's that they make you feel like you were never meant to belong. By morning, it would be Christmas Day. There would be hugs. Photos. Social media posts saying, "So blessed to have family." And me? I had already decided. If they wanted to move me aside, I would step aside. And observe everything. And when the moment came, I would not be silent. Christmas night doesn't only bring gifts. Sometimes, it gives birth to intentions. And that night, mine was born. Christmas morning arrived dressed in white. Snow covered the streets like a clean lie. Pretending nothing underneath was broken. I woke early, not because I was excited, but because my body had already accepted that sleep was a luxury I could no longer afford. I dressed carefully. Not for warmth. For armor. A deep green dress, tailored to remind anyone watching that I still belonged in powerful rooms. Gold earrings, subtle, expensive. Hair flawless. When family politics turn public, appearance becomes strategy. The house was awake before the sun. Elaine moved through the kitchen like a woman, hosting a victory dinner she hadn't announced yet. Noah laughed too loudly. My father read the newspaper, as if this were any other morning, and not the day he planned to rewrite history. I joined them with a smile. Because silence is not weakness. It is preparation. We gathered around the tree. Cameras out. Forced joy. Traditions polished for performance. The kind of Christmas that looks perfect from the outside and hollow from within. That's when my father spoke. Not dramatically. Not cruelly. Calm. Measured. He announced that changes were coming. He spoke about legacy. About succession. About preparing the family for the future. I watched Noah straighten his back. A boy trying to look like a man. Inside a suit he hadn't earned. My name was mentioned last. Always a sign. I was praised. Thanked. Honored. Then gently removed. Just like that. They said I had given enough. That I deserved rest. That the family would always be grateful. Gratitude is what people use when they don't want to say goodbye. I nodded. I didn't argue. Because arguing would have made this emotional. And I needed this to be memorable. I asked one question. Not loud. Not defensive. Just curious. I asked if the decision had already been signed. My father paused. Elaine looked away. Noah swallowed. That pause told me everything. I realized then that this was not a proposal. It was an execution. Christmas carols played in the background. Children laughed somewhere outside. And inside that room, a woman was being erased politely. I stood up. Slowly. Gracefully. I thanked them. For honesty. For clarity. And then I said the one thing they were not prepared for. I said I agreed. The air changed. Because power hates compliance. When it comes too easily. Elaine's eyes narrowed. Noah looked confused. My father finally looked at me. Really looked at me. As if he was seeing a stranger. I walked away from the tree. From the cameras. From the illusion. And as I climbed the stairs, I felt it. Fear. Not mine. Theirs. Because people who take your place are terrified. You might have planned your exit. In my room, I closed the door. And exhaled. Not in defeat. In control. They thought Christmas morning was the end of my role. They were wrong. It was the beginning of my advantage. Family politics don't end with announcements. They end with consequences. And Christmas was just the stage. They thought my agreement meant surrender. That is the mistake people always make. When a woman like me stops arguing. I didn't leave the house that day. Not immediately. I stayed upstairs. Listening to the rhythm of celebration continue without me. Laughter. Cutlery. Glass against glass. The sound of a family congratulating itself. From my bedroom window, I watched snow fall harder. Each flake erased something beneath it. Footprints, tire marks, evidence. That's how power works. It covers what it destroys. And calls it peace. They forgot something important about me. I didn't just support the family business. I understood it. Every hidden account. Every quiet settlement. Every compromise made to keep reputations clean. I had never needed authority to collect knowledge. I had needed patience. My phone buzzed. Messages from board members. From partners. People who didn't trust Noah yet. Because trust is earned in silence, not ceremonies. They were asking questions. And questions are dangerous. When answers aren't ready. Downstairs, Noah was playing his role. Too confidently. He spoke about expansion. About new investments. About vision. Vision is easy. When consequences haven't arrived yet. Elaine hovered near him. Correcting him softly. Protecting him loudly. A woman guarding a throne. She believed was finally hers. My father stayed quiet. He always did when change felt permanent. But permanence is an illusion. Especially when built on insecurity. Later that afternoon. I joined them again. Not to challenge. To observe. They stiffened when they saw me. Good. Power shifts. When people start checking their tone around you. I congratulated Noah. Sincerely. Because nothing disarms arrogance. Like respect it doesn't deserve. He spoke too much. That was my confirmation. When I finally left the house. The sky was already dark. Christmas lights reflected off the snow. Making the city look like it was glowing from within. But I knew better. Some lights exist. To hide the cracks. I drove slowly. I wasn't running. I was repositioning. That night. I opened my laptop. And I began to prepare. Not revenge. Truth. You see. Family politics only work. When everyone agrees to forget. I never forgot. Power never collapses loudly. It fractures quietly. In rooms where people pretend not to notice. The sound of something breaking. The first crack appeared 3 days after Christmas. Public. Subtle. Perfectly timed. Noah's first solo board presentation. Was meant to introduce him. As the future of the family empire. Press invited. Investors watching. Confidence rehearsed. I wasn't invited. Which was expected. But my absence. Was louder than my presence had ever been. From my apartment. Wrapped in a cashmere coat and calm certainty. I watched the live stream. Noah stood straight. Spoke fast. Smiled too often. He talked about growth. About transparency. About new leadership values. Words sound different. When spoken by someone who has never paid the price for them. The questions started gently. Then they sharpened. A delayed permit. An unexplained account shift. A contract renegotiated without board approval. I felt something rare. Not satisfaction. Recognition. Noah looked toward Elaine in the audience. She didn't meet his eyes. Powerful women don't panic publicly. They panic later. The meeting ended with applause. But applause is not approval. Sometimes it's disbelief. Trying to remain polite. My phone rang minutes later. A board member. Then another. They weren't asking for help. They were asking for context. And context is power's most dangerous enemy. That night. Elaine called me. For the first time in years. She spoke carefully. Softly. She said the family needed unity. Unity is what people ask for. When control begins to slip. I listened. I said nothing. Silence forces people. To reveal what they're afraid of. Elaine spoke longer. She always did when nervous. She mentioned legacy. She mentioned my father's health. She mentioned mistakes. Not mine. Theirs. I told her I wished them well. And I meant it. Because watching something fall apart doesn't require anger. Just patience. Snow returned that night. Thicker. Heavier. The city slowed down. But inside the family, everything accelerated. My father called the next morning. His voice was tired. Older. He didn't apologize. Men like him never do. He asked if I was willing to advise quietly. Quietly. As if I hadn't been quiet my entire life. I said I would think about it. Which was generous. What they didn't know was that the real damage wasn't coming from me. It was coming from their fear. Fear makes people rush. Fear makes them careless. Fear makes them forget who built the foundation they're standing on. Christmas lights were still up. Blinking. Beautiful. Out of season. Like a lie. No one wanted to take down yet. And beneath those lights, the family began to fracture. Not because I pushed, but because they removed the one person holding everything together. There comes a moment in every family war when silence stops working. When pretending costs more than confessing. That moment arrived on a gray January morning. Long after the Christmas lights had lost their magic. But before anyone had found the courage to take them down. My father asked to see me. Not at the house. At the office. That alone told me this wasn't a family conversation. It was a reckoning. The building smelled the same. Polished floors, expensive restraint. Decades of quiet decisions disguised as professionalism. I walked in composed. Not because I wasn't affected, but because I was prepared. My father looked smaller behind his desk. Age hadn't weakened him. Fear had. Elaine sat beside him. Still elegant. Still controlled. Noah stood near the window. Hands in pockets. Avoiding everyone's eyes. They didn't offer me a seat. So I took one. Power shifts. When you stop waiting for permission. The numbers were bad. Worse than reported. Deals paused. Partners cautious. Trust shaken. Noah's confidence had evaporated. Under pressure he wasn't trained to carry. They wanted solutions. Not explanations. Men like my father never admit they chose wrong. They just look for someone to clean up the consequences. Elaine spoke first. She said emotions had complicated things. She said the transition had been rushed. She said misunderstandings needed correction. She never said my name. Because naming someone is acknowledging their importance. I listened. Not politely. Precisely. Then my father spoke. He asked me, without looking at me, if I could temporarily step in. Temporarily. As if my absence had been temporary. As if erasing someone can ever be undone so casually. I looked at Noah. For the first time. He met my eyes. And in them, I didn't see arrogance. I saw regret. Regret is heavy. But it doesn't rebuild empires. I asked one question. Just one. I asked who would take responsibility for what had happened. The room froze. Because accountability is the one language power refuses to speak. Elaine's composure cracked. Just slightly. Enough. She said leadership requires toughness. That sacrifices must be made. That families evolve. Evolution is what people call it. When they want to avoid the word betrayal. I stood. Not angry. Clear. I told them I would not return quietly. Not temporarily. Not invisibly. If I came back, it would be on my terms. My father finally looked at me. Really looked. And in that moment, I saw it. The realization that he had mistaken loyalty for permanence. Noah spoke then. Softly. He said he wasn't ready. And that was the most honest thing said in that room. I didn't celebrate. I didn't comfort him. Because this was not about winning. It was about truth finally standing up. I told them I was leaving. Not the company. Not the family. The game. Because family politics only control you. When you agree to keep playing. I walked out. Heels steady. Back straight. And for the first time since Christmas, I felt light. Outside. The city moved on. People rushed. Lives continued. And somewhere between winter and spring, I understood something powerful. They didn't lose me. Because they pushed me out. They lost me. Because they never truly saw me. People assume endings arrive loudly. With apologies. With reconciliations. With someone finally admitting they were wrong. But real endings are quiet. They happen the moment you stop waiting. For someone else to change. I didn't return to the office. Not the next day. Not the next week. I let them sit with the consequences. Of removing the one person. Who knew how to hold everything together. Without demanding credit. The company survived. Not stronger. Not smarter. Just different. Smaller deals. Slower growth. Power structures don't collapse all at once. They shrink until they no longer recognize themselves. My father retired 6 months later. Officially, it was his decision. Unofficially, it was exhaustion. The kind that comes when control finally slips. And you realize you don't know how to lead without fear. Elaine remained. Of course she did. Women like her don't disappear. They adapt. But her influence faded. Without chaos to manage. She had nothing left to command. Noah stayed longer than expected. He tried. I will give him that. He tried to grow into the role. Instead of inheriting it. But ambition without foundation always cracks. He left quietly. No announcement. No scandal. Just a resignation letter. That said more in its brevity than any speech ever could. And me? I chose something radical. I chose myself. I started my own firm. Smaller. Intentional. I worked with people who didn't need to feel powerful. To act with integrity. My name carried weight now. Not because of family. But because of consistency. The city looked different after that. Not kinder. Just clearer. Christmas returned the following year. Lights again. Music again. Families again pretending. But this time, I wasn't standing outside anyone else's warmth. I created my own. I still dress well. Not for armor anymore. But for joy. I still walk into rooms with confidence. But now it comes from freedom. Not obligation. Sometimes, people ask if I miss my family. I don't answer immediately. Because the truth is complicated. I miss the idea of family. The version we perform for holidays. The one in photographs. The one we promise ourselves is real. But I don't miss the politics. I don't miss shrinking. To keep others comfortable. Christmas didn't break my family. It revealed it. And revelation, no matter how painful, is a gift. The lights always come down eventually. Trees are packed away. Decorations boxed. What remains is what was real all along. And what remained for me was clarity. Boundaries. Peace. Because blood may begin a story. But self-respect decides how it ends.